Random interesting thoughts that I thought and then wrote down. Hi, how are you? I do that. I write down thoughts. So I've done a video like this previously where I've talked about I've had thoughts and then I write them down, and I have stacks of paper of random thoughts that I've written down, or I type them into my phone and then I type them into the computer and make long lists and keep them in binders and folders, just random thoughts. I am an idea machine. This is what I've come to realize about myself, because constantly throughout the day, and I'm sure you have lots of thoughts too. Everybody has lots of thoughts. Do you write them down? I write them down. I am constantly writing down whatever thoughts I have, whether they're good, not good, sort of interesting, not really interesting, or I hear something interesting on a podcast and I write it down. And that makes all the difference in the world, because when I'm looking for a silly thought or something to talk to you about, I can go to my lists of random stuff that I've written down and say, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea. I'll talk about that. Because if I didn't write it down, I would be like, I don't know what to talk about. And that is the worst feeling ever for me. It's just having no idea whatsoever. So I'm constantly writing stuff down. So today I would like to share with you some more things that I've written down. It doesn't mean they're interesting, and it doesn't mean they're worth listening to, but they're random stuff that I've written down, and on the off chance that they inspire you or make you smile, let's get into them. So I wrote down, I don't think potato salad is a salad. I think it is chunky potato chip dip. I don't think potato salad is a salad. There's no lettuce, there's no croutons, there's no salad dressing. It's like macaroni salad. That's not a salad. It's a clump of stuff. I don't know what it is. It means its own classification. But potato salad is not a salad. I thought of that one day and I had to write it down. There have been Instagram videos of cats where someone has hooked a camera to the collar on the cat, and then the cat goes around the neighborhood and you get to see life from the cat's point of view. Where does the cat go? What does a cat go? Because growing up on our farm, we had lots of stray cats throughout the years. And I don't know what the cats did all day, you know? I was at school or going out doing stuff, or I was at work, but the cats would be running around the farm, and what would the cat do all day? And then these videos come along and they hook the camera to the cat collar, and you get to see the cat climbing a tree, going around the house, going under cars, getting in confrontations with other cats, sleeping. And it's just, I think that was just the most amazing thing. Those the kinds of videos that I just love on Instagram. Is like, oh, life from a cat's point of view. That's cool. And I just wrote down that I really enjoy camera on collar cat videos. I just absolutely love those. Also, I wrote down, I don't like exercising, but I enjoy having exercised. And that is so true. When I get on a treadmill or I walk around the neighborhood, I'm not really, it's all right. It's not great. Lifting weights, this is painful. This is uncomfortable. I'm sweating. But afterwards, I feel great because it releases all these chemicals and endorphins and wonderful things that make you feel good. And so afterwards, when I eat dinners, like after a good workout and eat some protein, I feel great because I worked out and I feel, okay, I did something, I wasn't lazy. I didn't lay on the couch and eat potato chips. No, I worked out or I went on a walk and I feel good after I've done it. But while I'm doing it, it's just like, I'd rather be sitting on the couch eating potato chips. But, I love the after exercising. Some of my inspirations for doing this YouTube channel. There was this thing on, I got from several places. On YouTube, I watched John Campea does a great movie podcast. And I've always enjoyed listening to John Campea, and how he does that show daily is amazing to me. Kait Witcher inspired me because, she does these YouTube thing, Kait Witcher, Kait. she does these videos where she just sits and talks. And I was like, oh, I can do a video where I just sit and talk. That's fantastic. I don't have to put on a show and do lots of cuts and editing and stuff, because that takes way too much time. I can just sit and talk. And so she's one of the people who inspired me to do this YouTube video. I also listened to A. Whitney Brown, was a guy on in 1989 era of Saturday Night Live, and he would come on during the Saturday Night Live news. They would do, and now here's A. Whitney Brown for a look on perspectives or stuff. And he would do these comedy monologues, which last 2 minutes, and then he'd go back to the host of the news. But I think it was Dennis Miller was doing the news, the SNL news at the time. But they would cut away to A. Whitney Brown. He'd do a comic monologue, and then they'd come back. And so that was one of the people that inspired me. Another one was Andy Rooney from 60 Minutes. And I don't know if you'll know this guy. Andy, in 60 Minutes, the last 5 minutes of 60 Minutes in the 80s and 70s and maybe the 90s too, Andy Rooney would sit and do a monologue or a commentary, and and now here's Andy Rooney. And Andy would sit at his desk and he'd complain about things. Why do people wear so many buttons? He would complain about the the things that he collects. What do I do with all this stuff on my desk? Or why do I have all these office supplies? Or why are people wearing caps? And he would do these they weren't really funny. They were just kind of amusing monologues where he just kind of whine about stuff. But Andy Rooney was one of those things that, maybe I could just complain about stuff or make commentary about stuff. But it's the fact that he was able to do 3 to 5 minutes on talking about office supplies. And how do you do that? How do you write or just think up a monologue about office supplies? That's one of the things that inspired me. So when I was thinking of how I want to do this YouTube video, those are some of the people that I thought of: John Campea, Kait Witcher, A. Whitney Brown, and Andy Rooney. So anyway, that's just something I wrote down that I wanted to share with you. Joke idea. See, I also type things. I carry around a little notebook in my coat pocket to write stuff down, and then I also type stuff into the notes in my phone when I think of some interesting idea. And apparently, or so usually when I'm cooking in the kitchen and I'm just either listening to a podcast or I have a random thought, instantly go to the piece. I have pieces of paper. I literally have printer paper, blank white printer paper, just laying around the house. Printer paper laying around the house where I can just write down an idea instantly. So I don't have to run upstairs or I don't have to run to another room. I have paper in every single room of my house in case I have an idea, and right there, I can write it down. And so I get gems like this. Joke idea. If R2-D2 was upside down, he would be 2D2R. Ba-dum-bum. Wasn't that gold? Wasn't that worth writing down? I also did a silly thought 3 or 4 years ago now, where in The Empire Strikes Back, when C-3PO is on the back of Chewbacca and his head is backwards, I thought, at the moment that C-3PO is backwards, he's not C-3PO. He is OPC3 because he's backwards. Anyway, this is the stuff that I write down, and sometimes it's interesting and sometimes it's not interesting. Or maybe it's not that interesting, but then it leads to something that possibly could be interesting. Anyway, everything is worth writing down. Perhaps not this. What do birds do when they can't find a bird bath? They're birds and they have bird baths. What do they do in the winter when things are frozen and they don't find a puddle? What do birds do? Do they just not bathe for a while? Or do they fly around? Are there enough bird baths in the city to allow all the birds in the community to bathe? And should we have more bird baths? Or do they go to a lake or a river? I've never seen a bird wash themselves in a river or a lake, but I have seen them use a bird bath. So I don't understand. Did birds not bathe until bird baths were invented? I don't know. That might be a question for the internet. Have you ever heard of the Cinnamon Bear? When I was growing up, I would listen every Christmas, every December, to the Cinnamon Bear, and it would be a radio show, and it was a cereal, not like a breakfast cereal, but a cereal, Serrial. I'm terrible at picturing letters in the air for spelling. Anyway, there was a cereal called, it was a radio cereal, so they do an episode about, 5-8 minute episode every day until Christmas. And it was about the Cinnamon Bear, and Jimmy and Judy in the attic find the Cinnamon Bear, and the crazy quilt dragon steals their silver star from the Christmas tree, and they have to go into a looking glass, which I guess is a mirror, and disappear with the Cinnamon Bear to go chase the crazy quilt dragon through Maybe Land, I think that's what it's called, and to get their silver star. And they go on all these adventures, and it's a new crazy adventure every episode until they finally get their silver star. Spoiler. After like 24 days, because it's the 24 days to Christmas. And I don't know if you've ever listened to this, but man, 5 o'clock every night in December growing up, we would get to the radio so we could listen to the Cinnamon Bear. And eventually, years later, we got all the Cinnamon Bear episodes on cassette, and now I don't know. I assume they're on the internet, and you can listen to the Cinnamon Bear, but they're crazy. It was this radio show that was invented in the 40s or the 50s, and I was listening to it in the 70s and 80s. But it was just, it's really cool. Old radio shows are fascinating to me. I used to go to this place called Waddles. By Jansen Beach in Portland, Oregon, right next to the Columbia River before you cross the bridge into Washington. There was a place called Waddles. And in Waddles, you could go to the front counter, and they would sell cassette tapes of old radio shows from the 1940s. And I got Who's on First by Abbott and Costello, and I discovered an old radio show called My Friend Irma, and there was all these cool old 1940s radio shows that I would listen to, and I really got into, and I thought they were really cool. And it's fun to, we have YouTube and everything, and we watch videos, and that's great. But it's fun to listen to old-time radio shows, and you just kind of imagine, just kind of like an audiobook, and you just kind of imagine that. And I remember when I was having my narrator narrate my audiobook, Passion or Pancakes there, because I'm looking into the monitor. How do I do my thumb? Anyway, we did the audiobook for Passion or Pancakes. I wanted part of it to sound like an old radio show where she's doing, 12 to 20 different characters. She's not doing the voice, but she's doing the personality. And I wanted it to kind of sound like the Cinnamon Bear and My Friend Irma and your old time radio shows, and it's just fun to listen to. And it's not just one author or narrator reading the story to you. It's like you're listening to an experience happening, and that's one of the things I kept in mind. Anyway, old radio shows and the Cinnamon Bear. I'm curious. Have you ever heard of it? Have you heard? Have you listened to it? If you listen to it, do you think you would like it? Do you like old 1940s radio shows? I think they're fascinating. The only video game I've ever really enjoyed playing at home is because I used to like Asteroids and Spy Hunter at the skating rink when I was growing up. But the only video game that I've really played at home was Quake 3 by Sega. I went to a party one time, and we played games, and they were giving out gifts, and somehow I won a Sega Dreamcast this is back in like 2003, and Sega Dreamcast came out in 1998. So, and I still have it. It still works. I haven't played it in a while, but the only game I really enjoyed playing was Quake 3, where you just kind of run around and shoot aliens and creatures, and you just run around and shoot creatures. And I just thought I'd mention that for some reason. I don't know why, but I wrote it down as like, oh, I miss playing Quake 3, I think is what I wrote down. I should study the lyrics of Carly Simon. Have you ever listened to the lyrics of Carly Simon? They're really good. She uses specific things rather than saying I'm sad. She'll write, very specific things, tears in a river, or, the toaster or something like that. But she'll mention a very specific thing. And it's really interesting how she does lyrics. Anyway, the lyrics of Carly Simon are really good. I should buy a ukulele. That sounds interesting. Because I have a couple of guitars, but a ukulele would be fun. I should buy old magazines. I listened to the podcast Rewatchables. And the guy on there says that this microphone is literally held up by painter tape. So I apologize if the painter tape is coming. This operation is literally held together by painter's tape. Anyway, one of the podcasts I like is called The Rewatchables, and the guy on there where they talk about movies, rewatchable movies. And he said that he went on eBay and he's purchased old Premiere magazines. Premiere magazine was like Entertainment Weekly, and they talked about movies and television and what was happening that week or that month. And I think it came out once a month, and Entertainment Weekly came out once a week. So Premiere Magazine, they had all these interviews with all these actors, and it's really cool stuff. And it got me thinking that maybe I should go back and go on eBay and start a collection and buy all these old magazines, because I used to have every episode of Premiere Magazine, but I would cut them up and make scrapbooks out of the pictures. So I don't have them anymore, but I did cut out some of the articles when I was going to acting school. And I would highlight and underline some of the interviews with like Gary Oldman or Al Pacino. And I still do have some of those. But I miss all those Premiere magazines. And so maybe I'll go on eBay and start buying some of the magazines they had back in the 80s and 90s, just for fun. I'll talk about a couple more things. I wonder if anybody has ever gotten a tattoo that says tattoo, just to be funny. I need to take my loose coins to the bank. I have so many coins that I need to take to the bank. And then probably add up to $20. Somebody said that Jupiter is a failed star. That's why it's so big. That Jupiter was like, I guess it's made of gas. It's a gas giant. And it was on its way to become a star, and it didn't become a star. And it failed to become a star. My commentary was, oh, how embarrassing. You tried to become a star and you failed, and now you just have to hover there in orbit for everyone to see? I tried to be a star. It didn't work out. And now Jupiter has to feel like a failure and just be circling around for everyone to see. I'm a failed star. No, you're still beautiful, Jupiter. You're amazing. Anyway, that's just a random thought that I had. Two more things. There were 396 students in my high school graduating class, and I know because I counted the pictures in the yearbook and all the listed names, and it came out to 396. Because you hear people say randomly, oh, how many people were in your graduating class? And somehow they know. Where did they get that information? I don't know. Did they do a census? Did they count everybody in their high school graduating class or their college graduating class? How did they know? Anyway, I know now that it's 396 because I counted the names. So if anybody ever asks, how many people were in your graduating class? I can say 396 because I counted. Maybe that's too specific. Maybe I should just say, about 400. So I don't seem too specific, and maybe that's weird. One more thing. I wanted to take a road trip. I've never been to the Midwest, I don't think. I've been to Florida and New York, and I've never been to Texas. But I've been to the Chicago airport and the Denver airport, but I've never been in the Midwest. I've never been to Nashville. And sometime I would like to take a road trip through the Midwest. And I remember I planned this out. I didn't put the date, but this must have been about 3 years ago that I planned this out. I think I did this during COVID. I planned out a trip because I was bored, and I planned out a trip, but I was so excited. I planned out a trip to Midwest, and so this is what I was going to do. This would be the itinerary. I would fly to Chicago, and I'd stay overnight in Chicago, and then the next day I would drive 184 miles to Indianapolis, which is I guess the three. I did the Google Drive and calculated how long it would take. 3 hours and 34 minutes to drive from Chicago to Indianapolis. I'd see Indianapolis. That would be cool. And then I would drive to Dayton. And then I would drive to Columbus, Ohio. And then I would drive to Cincinnati. And it's only like, a few hundred miles in between these places, so it wouldn't take very long. It'd take about an hour and a half. Because here in Oregon, if you want to drive to Seattle, that's a 3-hour drive, if longer. If you want to drive to Ashland, which is in Southern California, that's like a 7-hour drive. Then if you want to drive down to San Francisco, that's an 11-hour drive, 11 and a half, because I know I've done it. And then if you want to continue from San Francisco to LA, that's an 8-hour drive. So here in the West Coast, you can't get around to major cities very easily. It's a long drive. You take a plane or a train. But in the Midwest, you can get all these cool big cities within an hour and a half. And it just seems amazing. So I would go from Chicago to Indianapolis, Indianapolis to Dayton, Dayton to Columbus, Columbus to Cincinnati, Cincinnati to Louisville, Kentucky, then go to Nashville, and I'd spend probably 2 or 3 days in Nashville because there's a lot to see, and I think I've never been to Nashville, and I think it'd be really interesting. And then I'd drive to Memphis, and then I would drive to Licking, Missouri, and the reason I would drive to Licking, Missouri is because I had one of my characters in Passion or Pancakes, Callie. She was from Licking, Missouri, and I thought just that was a fun name of a town, Licking, Missouri, and I thought it'd be fun to go there. If I go on a road trip. And then I go to St. Louis, Missouri and see St. Louis. Is that the one with the arch? Because I've never seen the arch. That would be cool. That's just an amazing thing of architecture. And then I'd drive Memphis to St. Louis, and then I think I'd fly out of St. Louis back to the West Coast. And anyway, have you ever done a road trip like that? Or do you have any advice on going to the Midwest? And what I would love to do is I would love to stop and find the best places to eat. What's the best barbecue? What's the best restaurants to go to in the Midwest? Because if all these places are within driving distance, I could go to all these really cool restaurants, and I would love to experience that. I'd like to not just go on a travel, but I like to go on missions. I like to have an adventure. I like to have an agenda. Why am I going on this trip? Is to experience all this great food and all these really cool places that people have told me about. That's what I would like to go and do. Anyway, these are my random thoughts for today. Road trips and Jupiter. Poor Jupiter. I'm so sorry, Jupiter. It didn't work out. But Jupiter's still pretty. I've tried to be a star. Look how it's worked out. I feel like Jupiter. Yeah, my stardom didn't quite work out. So here I am on YouTube, trying to be a star and just sort of hovering around like Jupiter. Anyway, thank you for listening to my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts on anything that I've talked about, and your advice on where I should go in the Midwest for dinner. All right, thanks for listening to my thoughts, and I'll talk to you later. Have a great week. Bird baths. What? Is that the only time they bathe? Is when there's a bird bath around? Have a great week.